Ultra memories don't keep us blind. Static on the screen, voices we don't see. Dumpers got us wired, but we're breaking free. They're watching, they're waiting, with eyes in the sky manipulating. They silence the screen, but we know.
Families joining us today. Happy Thanksgiving to y'all. I know we had a good one. I had some quail, lamb, a lot of red meat. Jay Gulanello would be very proud of me. How are you, Jay? We miss you. We're going to have you back on here soon. There was another one, the UK Prime Minister. He came out and openly said that all of the Western societies have been running a practice or a sort of open borders strategy to see if it would work or anything would happen, only to say that it has failed, and now they are desperately trying to run it back and asking for help because they are, how do you say, up shit creek without a paddle? But that is neither here nor there. We have a prevalent evidence that we have already known that this is happening. Just a little interesting tidbit there that they're finally coming out and admitting it, although we all knew it to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they released a really cool electric flying car demonstration. They finally released a vehicle that is somewhat viable in the flying car spectrum. It's all electric, has fans instead of gigantic helicopter blades that spin around at breakneck speed. So who knows if that's going to come to fruition at all. It is just a concept vehicle after all.
Mm-hmm.
And it only has video representation of it flying, nothing actually truly flying with humans in it just yet. But still very cool technology. I know Elon hinted at it not too long ago, saying that we will be having flying cars within our life. So
Yeah.
let's see how that goes. Ben, you have any insight on any of this?
I do. Before we just start jumping into everything with the Gateway experience. So I wanted to dial back real quick because I had planned on bringing up the UAP incident at the airport. So
Please.
I don't know if y'all have been following it, but it is. I got to watch numerous videos, and it's irrefutable. Like, you get to watch this thing come down, land. It doesn't even land. It hovers over the ground by like a foot.
Yeah.
And I saw one video circulating around. I was trying to find it, but it was one where the resolution was actually super cleaned up. Like, it was not, they didn't use AI. Like, it was like the original video, basically.
That's cool.
The original upload before people started ripping it and throwing it everywhere, which also loses all the quality, just so you guys know. But I got to see this thing, and then I saw a post of someone trying to, like, they enhanced to try to clean up the pixelation and, like, all that stuff. And after they cleaned it up, they actually ended up making it. They were that AI tool they used to try to depixelate the photo was so close to what it actually looked like. Because I saw a cleaner video, and dude, it's almost damn near perfect.
Really?
The only difference is that they're all assuming it's got these points that protrude up. It didn't have any like, it has the points slightly, but it was the whatever the eyeball thing was that was moving around. Imagine, like, picture your iPhone camera lens. If you have like an iPhone 15 or something, or 14, where it's got the angled camera lenses, imagine one of those just like on this sphere on the front side of it. Oh, well, if that's the front, I have no idea. But when that thing moved around, because you can see that thing move briefly for 1 minute or I say a minute, it wasn't a whole minute, it was like a second. You see that thing move.
It's fast.
As if it's looking at something. And it's like seeing a lens to like an iPhone 15. Imagine if it was like a magnet that was on there where it like had like a tiniest gap between the eyepiece and the sphere. So when it moved its eye, what I'm calling it an eye, I have no idea if it's an eye, but watching that thing move around to look at things, it was obviously looking at shit.
Yeah.
And so whenever it was moving around, it was so fluid. It was like its own independent part, separate from the mechanism.
So are you saying the lens or the eyeball was
I don't know what to
independently
call
moving? It wasn't just stationary in the ball
Yeah,
turning?
it wasn't stationary. It
Gotcha.
like literally went like this. And I was like, yeah, it was an interesting thing to see at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
Just wake up looking like,
pretty daunting, I'd say.
But it does match the description of what people supposedly claimed angels looked like, because there's a lot of different variations of biblical tellings of what angels supposedly look like. and we're not talking about dudes with harps and wings on their back. We're talking weird looking entities of the original biblical,
Yeah.
you know, description.
And that plays into,
And
into
it
people wanting to
matches
think-
one of them where it's like an eyeball, floating eyeball all by itself with like weird moving things and like little points at the top of it, and it matches that description. And I saw like someone had, people, you can look up that artwork of people that do that. I looked it up, and it's like, okay, so basically the dudes who used to write with feathers, or poop on the walls, whatever you want to call it, they basically described what they witnessed, and it basically was that. They just couldn't understand it. Now, I'm not saying, I'm going to leave it alone.
I couldn't
We're gonna
blame
go
him.
The gateway experience.
I can't blame
But-
him. I wouldn't know what I'd be seeing either. I'd be panicking as well.
Yeah.
So, do we want to do a brief overview of what the gateway experience is? Because we have the declassified CIA file book that they released that you
Mhm.
can go buy yourself and read and do whatever
Yeah.
you want with it. It's also free online. You don't have to have the physical copy, but we decided to get it and read it. Ben briefly mentioned that we've done this one before, but we find it very pertinent that we really iterate the point of it and what it's doing, because it's not necessarily just for healing. They specifically mention it for warfare means. We did a psychological warfare episode just last week, so it was released yesterday. By the way, those of you who might want to go watch our YouTube videos or follow up on our past episodes, you can go watch that one that we released yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So they talk about how they want to use it for a warfare mentality as well.
Mm-hmm.
Although there was a interview of one of the individuals who was a part of it saying that that wasn't really their main point. Too bad. If the CIA or the government's funding it, their main goal is usually some sort of warfare tactic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So anything you want to touch on it? Start us off?
Well, I will say this is that I kind of want to like explain how we're going to go through this thing, because we're doing everything on the gateway experience. I'm not leaving. When I rehashed open my old book, my old copy, I even have like highlights in here. I don't know if you can see the highlighter or not, but
Yeah, they sure can.
I had like notes I had taken, because this book, all it is it's a direct copy of the documents. That's it. There's no author writing fluff in it. It's straight up scanned copies, and then they took the text that's hard to read, because it's like whatever, and all they did was retype it in clear modern day printer paper. That's it on certain moments, but they even have like the original images in here. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but like we'll get to that stuff.
Yeah,
But
we'll
like
pull it all up for you so you can
that's
see it.
hand drawn from the original people and the original documents. So, yeah. So how I was thinking about kicking this off was basically kind of give context to this thing, like why was this even done? What's the purpose of it? All these things, kind of like an intro to this thing, and then jump into how it works. Like methods of altered consciousness, all these things like that, to kind of like the physics of the consciousness and the consciousness as energy and like all these things like that. And then kind of like jump over and move on to like the different techniques and, like what the focus levels are, like kind of going through the techniques and of how it really is, how you utilize it. And then lastly, or sorry, not even lastly, I wanted to jump in. I said dump. I wanted to jump into the applications and implications of the gateway experience itself. Like if you were to try to utilize it and things like that. And then obviously I want to I have my own like final like kind of thoughts and reflection on this, and also kind of like my own philosophical type conclusions. Because everything we're about to talk about is 100% real. It's literally real. Like there's no refuting this. This was done. Yeah. We're going to hash into it, but I do have, while everything I just kind of laid out, you're going to hear the word Torus pop up a lot. The Torus. You're going to hear that. And when you hear that word pop up, we are going to go out of our way to explain what that is. We're just not going to explain it right away in depth, just because that's like its own thing altogether of kind of like taken away from, the pacing we're on with cover and everything. So we are going to talk about the Torus and the people behind it and how this thing was conceived and basically identified and found and all these things. So because the Torus is an essential part of this entire thing, because it's literally what makes up the fabric of everything.
That and the cosmic egg too.
Oh,
The cosmic egg, I find
dude,
very cool.
You're talking dirty to me now.
Oh, really?
So, but that being said, yeah, like I'm game to jump in. Do you have anything before we just start jumping right in?
So there are three main individuals who are a part of this. You have Bob Monroe, who you probably all know as Robert Monroe from the Monroe Institute. I'm sure you've heard that name thrown around. If you're in the sort of conspiracy ideology or just in the company of wanting to know what's going on, you've heard of the Monroe Institute. There's also a gentleman. He is a colonel. We have Lieutenant Colonel Wayne M. McDonnell. He is the author of the Gateway document. He's the individual who wrote this. This is sort of like a report that was given to say, hey, we found some really powerful stuff using Bob Monroe and this gentleman, Ishtak Bentov. He is an Israeli-American scientist who pioneered the biomechanical engineering concept in a whole. So he is sort of the, I want to say, founder of the idea behind the Gateway experience and how you were able to connect vibrational frequency to the world and then use it for however you want to use it. There was a lot of talk of it being used for bad and being used for good.
It was both.
But
in all reality,
it was both. But there was a lot of people's firsthand experiences saying that it's very difficult to use it for bad. You can't go out of your way to use it maliciously unless you are an expert in using it.
Yeah, and then on top of that, it's like that you can utilize it, and if you're going to use it for bad, and you're gonna, and this is going to come up here as we dive into it,
absolutely.
but basically, it's kind of hard to use it for bad when there's other bad things out there.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about people. We're talking about other things in this elevated state where you're at a different frequency internally with your consciousness. And it's really, one, it's fascinating, but then two, the fact that this is a real thing that took place over many years, and they all came to these conclusions with proof and evidence and like all this stuff because the person, the main person of this whole thing, was you already mentioned his name, McDonnell.
Oh, he's the individual who wrote it up.
Well, Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonnell, he was a military analyst, just so y'all know. He actually did this. He actively participated in the Gateway experience because he wanted, his whole point was to do a full report and analysis of the Gateway experience, this whole project, and report it back to the higher ups if it's actually a real thing or are they getting fluffed, kind of thing, like someone blowing smoke. He went and did, and he was just like, "Sir, I'll take this shit works for 500." And he was like, "SOB, I'm in." Yeah.
So when did it start? Did you in your research?
Oh, how about this? Why don't I just kick off the intro to it?
Okay,
Would that help?
sure, absolutely. Do you want to do you want to talk about how they refer to it as? Because they don't refer to it as the Gateway experience. They refer to it as hemisync. That is the ideal behind the entire thing, is getting your brains to synchronize together so that you can then teleport, if you will.
Yeah, you'll see it here. A couple of different narratives, names get thrown out there. But one of the things, I'm sure if I say some of these names, you may have heard of it. So you've heard, obviously, we titled this The Gateway Experience because that's what this was. But the original document was actually called, let me pull that up. Let me pull that right back up. I want to get the name of what this was contrived from. Actually, I have it right here in my book. It is Altered States of Consciousness. Or sorry, where did it go? That's weird. I just had the name in front of me. But there's actually a document. And actually, I'll just put it up on the screen because what I chose to do was get the PDF document of all of the files that were for the Gateway Project / Gateway Experience. So I can show you, and this is verbatim the same thing. So let me go ahead and pull that up. And you guys can take a look. So this is the document right here. And as you can see, let me get rid of that. So it was called the Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process. That was what it was called. It's right here on the top line. And this is, this is the official document. So as you can see, this is where we pulled everything from. And it's like, these are all authentic everything. Like they hand,
I got a
they
little
drill these
tidbit
things.
piece of fun for you.
Yeah.
Whenever this was first released in 2003 for the masses to look into and read for themselves, page 25 was missing. So
Yeah.
at 24, it would stop mid sentence saying, "You need to do this meditation for the," and then it would pause,
Mhm.
and then it'd go straight to page 26, and then it would talk about something completely different.
That's because that was the redacted sections.
Correct.
Yep.
So there's a lot of FOIA requests, a lot of individuals who were sort of angry at that. Like, you're still hiding from us, even though you released it to the public. Like,
Yeah, I want to
where's
say
the mix-up happening there? So then they finally released it in 2013.
because of the
page
movement on
25.
TikTok.
Absolutely.
But the one of the things that really always caught my attention with this is that when you got to that page and all of a sudden it just skips a whole page number, and obviously the conversation's at a completely different place now
Yep.
at this point. We were at, I want to say that if I remember right, it was at they were actually starting to dive into just before the page just disappears about other entities that you run into while you're doing this, because you literally can dimension walk. Like you can travel time, and because it just proves that time is not linear, it's a conscious construct, and it's not something that is pinpointed into like this way or this way. You can only go left or right. No,
right.
it's saying that it's all at once, everywhere, and depends on your frequency, you can go there. So it's wild, this stuff we're about to get into. So let's just kick it off. So I'm just going to kick off by explaining why it even exists in the first place. So the U.S. Army wanted to figure out if the gateway process, this whole system of expanding your consciousness, actually works. So they gave the job to Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonnell, who went 100% all in and diving deep into the science, physics, meditation techniques, even those theories about how the universe works. He left no stone unturned. He didn't rule anything out. He was being 120% objective with everything. And his job wasn't to say like, oh yeah, there's this cool thing, or nah, it's BS. He had to figure out how it works and explain it in a way that the military, people could actually use it. And that was the whole, that's why it even exists. That's why we even know about it, is because this guy was a total G, and he jumped in there and was like, I'm going to prove to you guys I can do anything I put my mind to, literally, because this has to do with my mind. So he did that. So let's move on from it. So what is the gateway experience or gateway process? So the gateway process is basically this method developed by the Monroe Institute. It's like meditation on steroids, essentially. They use specific sound frequencies called hemisync to sync up your brain hemispheres. So this is supposed to help you it's supposed to help you hit these wild states of consciousness where your mind is more focused, powerful, and even capable of doing these things. Like, for instance, that like out-of-body travel, or tapping into another universe and literally being able to see every, like, literally, like universal knowledge, essentially.
Do you know why?
Is how they start to phrase it.
Do you know why Bob Monroe became so infatuated with this?
No.
Because he himself was having OBEs, out of body experiences, and he wanted to understand why it was even happening. So in the 1950s, 1960s, Bob Monroe, he was just a radio broadcaster, executive. He then began having these out of body experiences and was like, what the fuck is going on? So he then became systematically obsessed with how to figure out how to do it at a whim, which is how he then invented or came up with the process of hemisyncing, which is using sound technology in a binaural, right? Binaural?
Yeah, binaural.
Binaural.
Yeah.
So binaural beats. So it's bump, bump, and then the other one's going dun, 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 dun. So it's two different beats in opposing ears at different frequencies that your brain then finds the middle ground. And then that is when you begin to have your out of body experience or your extra, I don't even know how to describe that, your extra sensory overloads, where then you can begin to heal your body, see things, and begin to experience an entirely different existence. That was all just based around guided meditation.
Yeah. So before you just keep going
Yeah,
into
please.
that,
Yeah.
I just want to finish out explaining the pretty much why, like, what is the gateway process. I'm
Absolutely
almost done with it.
No, I just wanted to say why he got obsessed with it.
Oh no, for sure. And we're gonna be doubling back to that guy here momentarily, actually. So pretty much picture this. Imagine your brain as two different teams. So you have the one logical, you got the one creative. Normally they're kind of like their own. They're normally their own thing, right? You're either you get your left and the right hemispheres. Well, the my bad. But the thing is with hemisync, it literally suddenly they're meshed. Like instead of there being like a wall, right? It then meshes everything together like this into one universal basically brain. Instead of there being multiple hemispheres, it's now like meshing into one completely. So which then creates like this laser focused mental state. And that's just step one. And the goal is to take you beyond your normal physical limitations. We're talking about accessing higher knowledge, solving problems that you never could even conceived of even understanding or solving before, or even stepping outside time and space entirely. And they prove it with this stuff they did. And then there's stuff that's redacted, which is the downside, because I wish we had access to those files that were taken out because they were redacted. So with all that being said, yeah, it sounds very out there, but that Colonel Wayne McDonald wasn't trying to hype it up in any capacity. He was literally just breaking it down into science. That was all he was doing. So that's basically what the gateway process is, kind of like just giving a condensed, just like brief kind of a description of things. So yeah, with that being said, looks like we have a caller. I'm going to turn time back on. Someone is actually calling.
Hey, Mom, we're live.
Hey, hi, Evan, you're live.
Yeah.
Mom.
Anything important you would need to say to me?
No, I'm down here in Austin,
Yeah. Y'all having a good time down there?
Yeah, we went to the Bob Bullock
Put it back
Museum
over.
today, learned all about Texas history.
Oh, beautiful.
There you go.
We're talking about the gateway experience today, about auto-guided meditation through binaural beats that the Bob Monroe Institute invented or found out about. Do you have any insight about meditation, Mom?
At 45% phone power right now. I don't have anything. to
Yeah,
add.
listen,
All right, Mom.
I know what kind of meditation you gave Evan over there. This is the meditation techniques you gave him. Do your chores and get decent grades and get out of my house.
That's okay. Okay,
Boom.
yeah, that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Boom.
All right, Mom, I love you. Thanks
One
for
for
calling.
the team.
Bye.
One for the team. Good old mom checking in.
I love that.
So now that you've done your phone call, let's move on.
Since I derailed the podcast.
Yeah, I know, right? So there's a really big question out of all this. So why did the Army care so much about it? That's the one thing that's like that pops up. So I have an answer for that. So why did the Army even bother with this? Well, back in the Cold War days, both the U.S. and the Soviets were into some really weird stuff.
Yeah.
Psychic research, remote viewing, mind control, you name it. If there was even a slim chance that people could use the gateway process to gather intel, solve for complex problems or like enhance performance in general, they wanted to freaking know, because that's imperative, especially when you're in the Cold War and dealing with that whole situation that was going on at that time. So this is how McDonald approached all this. So McDonald didn't say, all right, let's kind of like vibe with some binaural beats and call it a day. He took a scientific approach, like I said before, and he broke the whole thing down into 5 big chunks. You had the physical side, you had the mind, you had time and space, out-of-body experiences, and then the last one is belief systems, because that plays a role into this.
Huge.
Because with belief systems, something that you inherently believe in, and it's part of your conviction down to the core, maybe you grew up in this particular faith, whatever, that actually affects your vibrational frequency, because it's the mindset you're putting yourself into with such dedication and focus. So that's where that really plays a role. So like praying actually does have something that affects the mind. You actually get to see things happen in the mind when someone is intently praying. Same goes with meditation and stuff like with chakras and like all that stuff. So like there's different names for stuff. You could say, "Oh, I'm just praying." Praying's just another form of meditating, just depending on what kind of praying you're doing, how intense it is, the duration, the works. So I'm going to keep it real, and I'm finishing out this intro piece, and then we're going to move and start fleshing everything out, and I'll turn time over you because I know that you have tons of stuff too.
Absolutely.
So I want to keep it real about all this. So it's like, why does this matter? Why is this topic important? Things like that. So the reason why this is such a big deal is because McDonald was trying to connect dots between stuff we already know, like brain science and meditation, and things that sound impossible, like transcending time. So, and he's not dismissing anything. Instead, he's kind of saying, he took the approach of, if this works, here's why it works.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was looking for not just like, oh, hey, we're going to say it works. Well, you can't really prove something's working if you don't understand what's happening. So that was his whole thing, which makes perfect sense. You apply that to anything you're doing on that scale. If you want to understand how a car works, well, you got to know how to build it, and you got to take it apart. If you want to know how everything works in that thing in fluidity with itself across the board, well, you better start taking a car apart and figuring it out, because that's the only way you're going to actually know that it's working correctly, because you know how it's put together and what all it's comprised of, the works, and how it should be going. So that was his approach, which is actually extremely logical. But yeah, so with all that being said, basically, just to kind of close out this little intro piece to it, the gateway process is a method to unlock the full potential of your mind. It uses sound frequencies to sync your brain. Things like, so you can solve problems, all the things we listed off. The Army took it seriously because if it works, it was a game changer for intelligence and just the human performance aspect. And then, of course, lastly, McDonald's report breaks it down step by step, blending all the hardcore science and some pretty wild ideas about the nature of reality, and ended up being correct.
Yeah.
So with that being said, that's done with the intro. Let's move on. But I'll turn time back over to Evan because he's been chomping at the bit.
Oh, have I?
Oh, you have been.
So Bentov, as I mentioned earlier, the Israeli-American scientist Bentov, he had this wild idea. Is the body really the body, right? Is this human body really ours? So he comes up with this idea, the wild pendulum, or that what he wrote in his book called the Kundalini psychosis or transcendence. It's the idea that the human body is a resonating system capable of interacting with and influencing surrounding energetic environments. Basically saying our body, once it's tuned properly to the frequencies of our world, can manipulate it however we want. That is plainly stated in how that's simply written. So the pendulum is always referred to as, in Bentov's writing in his other books, as the thing that you're always chasing, is oftentimes in your way. So if you are attempting to manifest the idea while you're using the gateway experience sound waves, and you're attempting to get something, say it's love, if you're always trying to say, I need to find love, I need to find love, I need to find love, that's going to cause a block in your pendulum. Then your pendulum's always going to be in the way of love. So instead of manifesting it in that fashion, you need to be thinking about finding love and doing the acts to find love in your everyday life. Then through your meditation and your frequency, you will then find it faster. It will then manifest it on its own, and almost immediately you'll get these things. So I know most of you have heard the manifest it, repeat it, your daily mantras. These things oftentimes, if used incorrectly without meditation, without guidance, will become blockers and you'll never actually reach it. This is based off a scientific work that this guy did for, 40 years?
Yeah, it was started in the 50s. Technically, it started in the 50s, and
Yeah,
then
so
it went all the way until the
to the 80s.
yeah, right at the cusp of the 80s, roughly somewhere in there.
Yes, so they did it for a very long time, and he has extensive research on it. I think he's written 3 books about it as well. So that he theorized that during these meditations, the vibration of the heart and the aorta create a very specific oscillatory pattern that can align with the Earth's EMF, electromagnetic field. And once this happens, you are OBE, flying across the world, being able to do whatever you want, manifest whatever you want, get whatever you want. And it worked. I know that it simply states it worked, but there are testimonies of people who have done this. And let's make it very clear. You can't just listen to these books and immediately, or these sound waves, and immediately you're resonating with the world. It takes years of practice to even get to the 12th stage, the phase 12, I believe it's called, maybe force 12.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once you're able to get to there, that's when you begin to unlock the future findings, when you're able to travel time and space, as they have written in the CIA files. So after 5 years or so, you're going to be able to really become one with the world. A lot of individuals have experienced faster. It all depends on how you are raised and your experience of life and how open-minded and willing you are to participate in these things.
Mm-hmm.
I found that particularly fascinating. Granted, that was on page like 4 of the CIA files. There's another thing called the special self, which is how they monitored these individuals falling into the hemisync. It's a digital thermometer that would inform the left brain and the right brain are becoming in sync in the appropriate areas.
Mm.
Now, there's no like description of what it actually looked like. If it was a sensor, if it was a hat you had to wear,
No,
if
no,
it was
no.
something of that
it was
nature
all through
that was written in the book. But if you're able to look it up further and further, as we have in the past,
Oh yeah.
there are hats that they will put on these people to help force a guided meditation, to help force it faster.
Yeah, for frequency. It's not like a hat, like a paper hat. Or
Yeah, think of like a
that.
skeleton ribs over top of your head.
Yeah, like of all these different things that put resonate frequency. and
Absolutely
stuff.
right. So they have found ways to speed it up, but ultimately it's just your peace and quiet practice. Go for 15 years. You'll be able to get
They
to
say
it.
starting out, just to add to it.
Yeah.
So starting out, they were using things like deprivation tanks,
Yeah.
things like that, because the person at the Monroe Institute, I believe they're the ones who created the first
That's right,
deprivation
that's right.
tank for this particular reason, like things of this nature. But this, they did for people first starting out who are still like kind of getting it together and learning how to do this. The deprivation tank was used, but as they kept doing it and learning it, they ended up not needing it anymore.
That's it, yeah.
Because by the end, the goal of it is that by the end, once you master it, you don't need a deprivation tank. You don't need those things. You are so in tune with your own mind that you can just meditate, and you know how to get yourself to that.
That's called
place.
That's demand mode.
Mhm.
That's on page 13, like the 5th paragraph.
And by the way, to everyone, if you check the chat, I don't know how many people are listening right now, but I did post a few minutes ago the link to the declassified documents, so you can actually go and pull it up yourself and read it and see it and all these things
in real time.
in real freaking time. All right, back to you, Mike.
Yeah, so that's called demand mode. It's the extent that the left brain consciousness is enabled to access appropriate areas in the right brain using its consciousness. So pretty much once they have melded together and it's a constant back and forth, you can at any time be like, all right, I'm going to go travel to Uranus. Boop. And you're going.
Yeah. So since you jumped in that, I'm going to jump into part 3 of what I was going to break down.
Cool.
I'm only going to jump in so I can say one thing
please.
add to this. So basically, when you were referring to consciousness, so just so everyone is aware, the consciousness is an energy. And then they discover it in this. And basically, when they do all of this, it basically, so here, let me just read this quote straight from the book, just so you guys know. So it says, or book, I say the documents. Consciousness functions as a coherent, oscillating pattern of energy capable of achieving resonance with and therefore turning into the more subtle energy levels of the universe. That is a direct quote from these reports or from this long report. So I wanted to throw that out there because, your mind is essentially like a radio.
Yeah.
And through practices like the gateway experience, you can tune, and I'll put my little quotes up here, little quote fingers, tune your consciousness to access higher frequencies of dimensions of reality. And the tuning process works because your consciousness is inherently a part of the universe's broader energy system, because it is. We have energy in the air we can't see. We produce our own energy just walking through a field of grass. You can see how our energy interacts and bends and melds in through different types of like filtrations to be able to see that type of energy. And see how it affects that. So when they say that, like, basically talking about how you're inherently part of this universe of a broader energy system for the universe itself, that's what they're talking about. You're naturally in tuned with it. You just don't realize you are. You have to figure out how to. It's like trying to figure out how to open, like finding the right door to an apartment complex that you didn't realize was actually part of your property, and now you're walking through this giant apartment complex where there's nothing but doors with no numbers on them. So you're like, wait, I'm supposed to go to room whatever, but nothing's labeled, and there's 600, unmarked doors in here. And so I hope that analogy kind of made sense. Did it make sense?
It kind of.
But you know what I mean? Like basically an unknown. You don't realize it, but it's
infinite,
there.
right?
Yeah.
It's infinite and forever.
I'll turn back over to you.
One of the most insane things that I read in this book, it was about how these meditations and these frequency manufacturing work and how it can be used to benefit you.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is it going to help you travel the universe, time and space, go see Paris for the first time, go see dead relatives that are wandering the universe in different realms, but in your human form, as they refer to it, you can get rid of pain. Healing can be enhanced. So if you are having muscle issues, problems losing weight, if you can meditate using this, it'll enhance all these things. It can get rid of malignant tumors. They can be suppressed and ultimately completely destroyed. You can enhance the body's pleasure centers, and that they can be stimulated.
I am so. Oh, wait, sorry.
Yeah,
Anyway,
buddy.
I'm so game.
In every
dude,
way
you have no
possible. You know what I'm
idea.
saying? Granted, this is only viable in a deep meditative state.
You lost me.
And
now.
they have found it through using EKG machines. So people who have been hooked up to this meditative state in these practices, they'll plug them up to an EEG machine, and then they'll test their body, and they'll show that the frequency of 432 hertz is ravaging their body and healing it. Because 432 hertz is what, Ben? The healing frequency.
Yeah. Yes.
So
Sorry, I was distracted.
I don't know you out there have ever done yoga or some sort of meditative retreat. If you have, I know Jay Gulanello loves that shit, and I love Jay.
Yeah, Jay Gulno's awesome. Go check him out.
But
Perpetual health.
if you listen to 432 hertz while in a meditative state or in sleeping states, your body begins to heal itself. And it's been proven science. The CIA did $40 million of research over 40 years to prove that it's absolutely true. So if you don't believe me, you can believe the CIA, right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep. There's something I want to flesh into, which is playing off of what you're talking about. So this is going to kind of like we're going to jump straight into kind of like how it works, what it's all comprised of to make it work. Because I really want to read a particular quote out of this book, because it's one of my favorite snippets in it. So let's talk about like the key methods of altered consciousness. What are the key methods? So since we're going to like kind of jump into kind of like the nuts and bolts on how the gateway process actually works, and also how it stacks up against other methods of shifting consciousness. So this whole report starts out basically comparing the gateway, comparing gateway to things that y'all may have heard of, like hypnosis, biofeedback, transcendental meditation, before explaining that, explaining what, makes the gateway experience or project experiment different and why it's so powerful in comparison to all these other ones. So the report doesn't just jump into explaining the gateway process. It kind of like takes a step back to explain other. It takes a step back to explain. Man, I'm just like losing my spot right now in my notes.
That's what happens when I look at people.
I know. Hello, people. So basically, it takes a step back to explain other techniques first. So it's basically, so you can understand what the gateway process is doing in comparison to methods we're already familiar with, like the ones I had mentioned. So, if you have like hypnosis, meditation, biofeedback, these are all different tools for altering your state, of mind. But the gateway takes some of the best parts of the tools, supercharges them basically, and adds in its own little secret kind of like sauce, like, because it's its own method as well.
Yeah, it is.
And basically what gateway is doing is it takes all of the big hitting elements of a positive impact, the thing, what makes them work so well, and basically takes all those from the ones that we listed off that you may be familiar with, and pulls it all together with its own. And it's basically like having a Swiss Army knife that's actually useful. It's not like a Swiss Army knife where it's like, oh man, I got my Swiss Army knife, I'm surviving out here for 3 weeks, and then it's like, oh no, a bear showed up. I got my little corkscrew.
I got my little scissors.
I got my little scissors. It's got a little baby scissors. But it's essentially like all of a sudden now you have a hunting rifle that can reassemble itself in live time for whatever need. So if you needed an axe to chop down a tree, it would form into an axe. Absolutely. All of a sudden. Things like that. It's like basically an all-in-one tool of the highest level for this type of stuff. So so I want to kind of talk about hypnosis because of how it plays into this. I told you, man, I went right back to my old stuff and I went deep on this.
Hypnosis, really? You want to get into that with this?
Yes.
I know it's a part of
because
it.
it's about turning off the left brain.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Because for the
that's
melding
what the binaural
process.
Beats, that's what the binaural beats do.
Yep.
They put you in a hypnosis state.
So I want to start with that because hypnosis works by basically distracting or bypassing the left brain.
Let me tell you right now. I always thought hypnosis was a crock of shit. I thought it was just some hokey dokey.
You just misunderstood.
Look at this watch as it goes back and forth, and now you're going to pass out. That's how I imagined it, but that's not really how it truly works. It's more of like a brain control device, and that is how they ended up using it in the Bob Monroe Institute for the Gateway Experience. Back to you, Ben.
All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So let me jump back to where I was because you decided to So basically, let me fix that so I can see. Where was I again? Hypnosis.
Yeah.
So the hypnosis works by distracting the left brain, which is the logical, analytical part of your brain. If you've ever zoned out in a boring lecture or movie, whatever, or you felt a version of that of some form, right? Like you just zone out all of a sudden. Well, your left brain when that happens, your left brain kind of goes into idle mode and shuts down, and your right brain, the more emotional and creative side, pretty much takes over. Hence, you're like daydreaming, things like that. That's the right side taking.
That's like
over.
whenever you have autopilot when you're driving.
Yeah, that's like autopilot with me every day. I'm just like, oh,
That's the tism, Ben.
Dude, the tism is real. I'll tell you what, guys. So here's the key part of all of this. So when your left brain isn't filtering everything, suggestions go straight to your right brain. It's like bypassing like the security guard at the front door and getting the VIP section, essentially. Like you're able to scoot, boot, scoot, and boogie right around.
That's a yeehaw from me.
Hell yeah, brother. So hypnosis can make you feel things physically like numbness or emotionally like happiness just through basically suggestion. So the connection to the gateway is that in the early stages of the gateway process, they use techniques that would calm your left brain, hence hypnosis to a degree. It's not full-fledged hypnosis, but it's elements of hypnosis. And basically calm your left brain just so you can engage your right brain a little bit more easier, similar to hypnosis. But that's just step one. And then you end up going much further, because then the next step is to basically reactivate the left hemisphere of your brain and cause them to mesh.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically making one dim down so the other one will come out more predominantly, and then you shift the tune and then try to get your left brain back up while the right brain is at that level, same level. And then you start to create the mesh.
That's when the hemisync comes into
The
play.
hemisync starts. Yep. So now that I've explained that, so let's talk about transcendental meditation. So this is a technique basically where you focus your mind completely, often on like a mantra or a specific thought, right? Basically to quiet all the kind of like mental chit chat you have going on in your head. And over time, this intense focus creates basically like standing waves, patterns of energy within your brain. And then these waves can even sync up with your body's natural rhythms, like your heartbeat and things like that. Like I said, everyone has their own unique frequency across the board. Your frequency is different than mine. We're just within, I always think of this as like graphs, like how we're all in this plane of existence together and we're able to engage with each other and talk to each other and all these things. It's because even though your frequency is different than mine, imagine a graph, right? As long as you're within this circle and you're not outside of the circle into an overlapping circle somewhere else, you're in this realm of vibrational reality. So, or vibrational frequency of reality. So with that being said, we're obviously within the same bubble, but you're over here on the bubble and I'm over here, but still within the boundary. So that's why we're able to still engage with each other and see each other on all levels, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to explain that because it can get confusing talking about all these frequencies.
And you know what's the craziest part about it?
What?
This is the boring part of the.
This is the
files.
boring part of it. But it's important though. And that's the whole reason why we're taking the time to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because you can't talk about this without going through this stuff, like at all.
Yeah, we can go jump right into the cosmic egg and the Torus, and you might be like, wait a second.
And transcending time and witnessing things, running into entities on another level of
Yeah.
existence that do want to harm you.
This is simply just the precursor to the insane things that they have found out about this and still use to this day.
Yeah.
Although they say that has ended, we all know that they don't ever end. They just start using them.
Yep. So one key effect of transcendental meditation is something called don't hate me for butchering this word if I butcher it.
I already hate you.
But I want to say this is how you pronounce it, and it's called where'd it go? I just lost my place. Right there. Kundalini?
I've already spoken about this.
I know. You mentioned it earlier. I just didn't want to jump in and then because I knew I would have jumped it right up to this and not gone through the other information that needed to get laid out. But is also something called Kundalini, and that's when energy, I don't know if you fully, I can't remember if you fully described it or not, but that's when energy moves through your body in like a loop.
Yeah.
And basically what it does is it triggers sensations of bliss and heightened awareness, blah blah. I know you were mentioning you mentioned some stuff briefly, but here's the catch. Transcendental meditation can take years of practice to master it, apparently. That's what they talk about in this. And they, and they mention that, saying like, we don't got 50 years. We're on a deadline with the corporal over there. Like, we got to make this work. Get the technology. Put the thing on his noggin. So, sorry, that was a joke, everybody. I have no idea if that took place.
Well, they did. They used the sensors.
I know, but I'm saying playing out that way. But so think 5 years or more to reach these, advanced stages. And that's just the advanced stages. That's not mastering everything. That's maybe being competent enough and skilled enough from practice to achieve, let's say, about 70% the way there. But then in order to achieve that last 30%, well, that could take up another 10 years potentially, or 20 years. Everyone's different, but you get what I'm trying to lay out. It takes time, and sometimes you don't have that time.
Correct.
But here's the thing. So the reason why Gateway is so great in comparison to these is because Gateway shortcuts a lot of this. And that was just transcendental meditation. Gateway cuts that in half, basically. and it uses sound frequencies. Hence, my lovely co-host has mentioned it several times. The hemisync to nudge your brain into the same kind of states that I'm just going to call it TM for transcendental meditation, but it basically nudges your brain into the same kind of states that TM practitioners spend years training for. So the people who are all training over there doing transcendental meditation for 20 years, you walk over and you knocked it out in 2 years just by doing the gateway process. It's insane.
We've been
like
live
I said,
for an hour already, buddy. Look at this.
Dude, I'm not even...
I know. That's why I'm reminding you, because we've already talked about this.
Oh, I told you, man, this is a deep dive. Like, I'm not stopping until it's covered. And this is everything. I'm not walking away, just so you listeners know. I'm not walking away till we go through everything in this book. So you have full understanding. Because I care about the audience. I do. Really, I'm doing it for my own guilty pleasure. So with that being said, there's another one. You want to jump in? Because I was going to talk about biofeedback.
Biofeedback. Okay, that's a good one. I just want to touch briefly on a few things here. In the chapter 6 on page 16, there's a few really interesting sentiments that Ishtak brings up and that the Colonel wrote about. He says, Gateway assumes that once the frequencies and amplitude of the human brain are rendered coherent, it is possible to begin accelerating both so that the human mind is soon resonating at ever higher vibrational levels. The mind can then bring itself into synchronization with the more sophisticated and ratified energy levels inside the universe. Meaning, your body sits at a simple, flat rate at all times. And the things that you intake, music, your car, the things that you just listen to on a regular day basis, the movies, the TV shows, they affect how your body works. Plain and simple. If you're listening to metal music all of the time, that is played on a lower frequency, so your body's going to resonate lower. If you're listening to rap music that's heavy, low-hitting BPMs, your body's going to be frequency lower. That's why Mozart and all these other individuals of the Renaissance era played their music at a higher frequency, 432, 435 hertz, because it makes you feel nice when you listen to it. It makes you happier. It makes you feel loved, even. Fun little fact, back in 1965, 1985, I think it was 1980, right around that time, they banned the use of using 432 hertz in any movie and any radio. You are not allowed to use that hertz.
Really?
Yes. It is against the law to use 432 hertz on the radio.
Oh, I just remembered that.
So with that in mind, if something's usually illegal, it usually means you should probably look into it and see what's going on. Besides drugs. Kids, don't do drugs.
I don't know. What are you guys doing in there?
So
we're smoking weed, Dewey. You don't want
you don't want none of this.
Well, what does it do? It makes you feel good and sex great.
Is it habit forming?
It's non-habit forming. Well, I think I want some of that.
So
no, you don't, Dewey. Get out of here.
With all that being said, such meaning in usually perceived visually in the form of symbols, but may also be perceived as astonishing flashes of holistic intuition, or even in the form of scenarios involving both visual and oral perception. Meaning, once you're able to hit the resonance of the earth and these belongings, you will begin to see things. And that's what Ben was talking about earlier with intergalactic beings or whatever beings. It's like light beings or aliens or what have you. You will begin to see them more and more. And that brings me over to chapter 7, which the frequency following response, the hemisync technique, is simply, I'm just going to touch on this briefly. If a subject hears a sound produced in a frequency which emulates one of these associated with the operation of the human brain, the brain will try to mimic it. So you hear 5 beats and then you hear 10 beats, your brain's going to try to find the middle ground and repeat it. So your brain is very powerful. So make sure you know what you're putting inside your brain, because Smartly Uneducated is here to be in your brain and make you a little bit better. Right, Ben?
Sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%, guys. Can you keep going for another second?
I already talked about how the heart is a big play in it. There's an amazing metaphor that they use in the book. When your heart beats, it pumps blood through the aorta, one of those two, and it goes down your leg, and it sends a signal down your leg, but your heart keeps beating. But that blood's got to come back. So once they meet together in the middle, that's when they are at a sync. So that is the idea. That's the basic metaphor that they use to get into this. And just so you're aware, the Gateway Experience audible sounds you can go buy right now. All of the CDs are available for $500. You can go buy them and listen to them in your house. It is highly recommended to listen to it on with headphones so that you can hear both sides, left and right. You don't want to have a large speaker blaring into your face or just one AirPod in or what have you. You need to make sure that you have everything available to benefit you properly. And if you are already using meditation to benefit your life, it will greatly enhance your meditation. We're going to fast forward here a little bit. We have a few things to go over here. I know Ben wants to talk about the Torus. I find that fascinating. The cosmic egg is fascinating. They refer to the brain and the face and the head as a holograph on multiple occasions in this book. Holograph are widely used. And that is simply because they are trying to make a point across that your body can be manipulated using sound and technology, because you are simply just a vessel that is being manipulated already.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to make sure that you can change it on your own. Nobody else can change it, only you. So the holographic mind is something that is always changing, always being manipulated. So keep that in mind, because I'm sure that'll come up again, the hologram of the brain.
Yes, and I'm going to put that up when we get to that nitty-gritty stuff. That's why I had the FOIA, or the
That's
release
gonna be a 6-hour
documents.
episode, huh?
We're gonna go until we get it done, because that was the plan. This is a full deep dive, folks, so buckle up. So I will bring that up on the screen again, those FOIA documents, or not. Well, I guess it is technically FOIA documents. I will bring it up again so I can show you the images that they created of the Torus and of the brain, and how they do the different quadrants with this grid pattern, as well as like the egg, and also the
Torus.
the Torus. But there was one other thing. We'll come to it. It'll pop up and I'll know what it is. But there is something I want to throw in there before I get into the physics of consciousness. So kind of like where the nature of the nature of consciousness and a connection to the physical and non-physical universe, and basically consciousness and energy, the holographic. That was it. The holographic universe. Yes, you heard that right. Holographic universe. So, but there is a quote I want to read, because I think it's important. So let me pull this up. There it is. So, like I said at the beginning, there was the whole thing about how on the last one is your dogmatic belief, right? Whatever conviction you had, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Hinduism or whatever. There's many different ones of different things and different forms of meditation in each one. But he had a comment about it, and he made sure to talk about it. And he says, paradoxically, having gone to such great lengths to avoid trying to render judgments based on an occult or dogmatic frame of reference, in the end, I found it necessary to return at least briefly to the question of the impact of the Gateway Experience on common belief systems. Because basically what he's getting at, and I'll read another excerpt that's like one paragraph down, because it plays into this. So basically it talks about how resulting conclusions do not do any violence to the fundamental mainstream of either Eastern or Western belief systems. Unless that point is clearly established, the danger exists that some people will reject the whole concept of the Gateway Experience in the mistaken belief that it contradicts and is therefore alien to all they hold to be right and true. He made sure to say that, because what he's trying to get at is saying that it doesn't matter what you believe in. All of this, basically he's saying that what he discovered in this is that all of these belief structures, whatever you have, it really doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, when you achieve this state of consciousness and mind, that you get in tune with the universe and you see how everyone's interconnected to each other and how you are meshed with another person as well, and how everything kind of flows that you visually cannot see. And basically he's trying to say, like, it doesn't matter what you believe in. Once you're there, it all becomes clear, and it's nothing bad. You realize that, oh, we're all one and the same. We're just going about it slightly differently in our realm of existence. But ultimately, at the end, for the most part, at the end, it's the same, like across the board. And that's what he was trying to get at by saying that. So since I threw that in there, I'm going to fly through this a little bit because I mentioned the consciousness as energy, like earlier, about how, and just in case you're tuning in now and you haven't seen or heard me say that, I'll read I'll brief through it. Basically, framing the consciousness as a form of energy that vibrates and oscillates like other physical phenomena. Basically, consciousness is not limited to the brain or body. Rather, it's an interactive energy field that operates on frequencies. And McDonald draws from biomedical research and theoretical physics to explain all of this, asserting that consciousness can interact with and influence its entire environment. Everything, even someone else, like across the board. So there's that. And I had mentioned how your mind is like a radio, and and you got to tune in your consciousness tune it in order for your conscious to access higher frequencies or dimensions of reality, etc. So holographic universe. Boom, baby. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. So in order to explain how the consciousness interacts with the universe, McDonald had invoked this like holographic model of reality. And basically it's a hologram. A hologram is unique because every part contains the whole within it. So if you cut a holographic image, quote unquote, into smaller pieces, each fragment still contains the entire image, just a smaller resolution of it, essentially. So McDonald applies this principle to the universe and consciousness. He suggests that the universe operates as a hologram, where every piece, down to the smallest particle, contains the totality of all existence. So your consciousness, as part of this holographic universe, is inherently connected to literally everything.
Yep.
Everything, everybody. We're talking everything. Like, I don't know how else to label it
It's
besides
referred
saying
to
everything.
as like the consciousness grid. Everything's on the same field, no matter what. You can in tune to everything.
Mm-hmm. And, so basically, and here's a quote. I got a quote for you to read. The holographic model suggests that the human mind is able to read the wave patterns of the universe and recreate the totality of what those waveforms represent. So basically easier way of explaining it, imagine sonar, essentially.
That's fair. Yeah, I'd say
In a way, it's a light example, but imagine or echolocation. The bat will, because they use echolocation, they'll put out the whatever perch.
That's
noise.
that's the laser beam metaphor they use,
Yeah,
right?
and they use and then also the light bulb part, like going down the head. There's a lot of
Because
different
they
things.
say that your frequency and your radio waves that you're constantly sending out are in a broad cone going out. But whenever you use the gateway experience and you become one and really good with it, it's pinpoint laser down. So then you can decide what you want to do and interact within that frame of existence.
Oh yeah,
which
baby.
is insane to think about. I know, I keep saying that it's insane.
Everything about this
This
is insane,
book-
but it's amazing.
If you're able to follow it and do what they say to do, your world will change.
Yeah. Yeah, no, without a doubt. And on a later episode, or if anyone wants, I did a deprivation tank. We both went and did deprivation tank sessions, and I had a very trippy, wild experience and during mine. So, with that being said, maybe at some other time we'll do it. I highly doubt we'll get to it in this episode because it's a long thing to explain of what I went through, because I felt like I thought I had lived for centuries when I came out, and I experienced some weird stuff. So, moving on. So, all right, so we're going to talk about now. So the reason why I took this approach, because I'm sure some of you, if anyone's kind of thought it already, and I know that you weren't fully aware of the route I was going to go to break this down, because after we did this whole breakdown on the gateway experience back the first time we ever did it, a long time, like almost 2 years ago, we came at it from the point of view of just like basically like we understood it, we read it, but we were really just going off of like certain pieces, and then like I felt like I really dropped the ball in a weird way of making sure the right information got out to people who didn't hear about this. So I decided to take the route of kind of like McDonald did, which was let's talk about how it actually works. Let's figure it out. So that's why I went the route I did with all my reports, or I just typed up tons of notes for each section. So, and I thought it was pertinent to do it that way because I want you guys to understand it. I don't want to just like talk about an overview.
I'm just ready for the fun to begin.
Oh, it's starting to begin right now. So let me just skip ahead. So resonance in the energy grid. So resonance is central to how the gateway process works. McDonald describes how everything in the universe vibrates as specific frequencies from subatomic particles all the way to the human mind. So when two objects or systems vibrate at the exact same frequency, they achieve resonance. And it's a state of mutual amplification or essentially harmony with one another. So your consciousness, when it's properly kind of tuned into all this stuff, through brain synchronization and hemisync, basically you can it will resonate with the universe's energy grid, essentially. And this grid is described as the fundamental structure of all realities, not just one reality, our reality. We're talking about all realities. It doesn't matter. The grid is what everyone's playing on. It's the one big sandbox we're all in, and it doesn't matter what frequency or reality you live in. You're in that grid too. You're just in a different place we can't touch because of what we're talking about. So with that being said, so by aligning with the grid, your consciousness can extend beyond the physical body and access higher dimensions. So here's a quote out of it. So the human mind operates as a complex and dynamic energy system, one that can transcend time and space when properly attuned. So this is a very, very profound statement for him to make. But McDonald suggests that with the right tools, your mind is not limited to your immediate environment or even your physical timeline. It's part of something much, much larger. And he proves it in this. So this was all one big report, remember?
Yeah.
And by the end of the report, it wasn't even the end. He was like a page in saying, dude, this is real.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap.
He's like, I witnessed some shit.
Yeah.
And Dad, I know you're listening. This is right up your alley, ain't it? So all that Stargate and stuff. Now, I know you love it.
We talking about Stargate with
Stargate, the TV
with
show,
Kurt
big
Russell.
dog. Yeah.
Oh, I was talking about the movie.
I don't know about the movie. I don't know.
It's what kicked off the TV show,
Oh, gotcha.
which is unrelated to the movie because it had none of the cast from it. But
Anyway,
hey,
I'm getting you sidetracked.
we're having a good time, dude. Shut up.
Are you on the time and space dimension section yet? I don't want to get
We're
ahead of
talking
you.
about no, just bring it in because we
So
can flesh
my
it all through.
my favorite line in this entire book,
What
entire
page you on?
document, I'm on page 30, is when Lieutenant Colonel says, "Now the fun begins." Because Gateway involves more than just perception of those aspects of the universal hologram which can be assessed in the dimension of time and space as we know it. So time and space as we know it, our universe, our galaxy, our planets, it's way beyond that, which I know that we have expressed a few times now, but that is just what the Colonel said in the book, and I thought it was hilarious. So a fantastic quote here. I know we keep going off quotes, but pretty much we're just going to read y'all most of this document and talk about it and have our insights about it.
Mm-hmm.
If energy is in the state of infinity, right? There are no boundaries, not here, to differentiate from there. No sense of area. So once you are able to reach this state of quote unquote nirvana, you cease to exist.
Mm-hmm.
There's no boundaries. There's no realm. There's no nothing. You can just go on forever. You can do whatever you feel like it. It's absolutely brilliant. They then began to coin that phrase. They began to put a name to it. And I don't know if you know that, Ben, but they call it the absolute.
Mm-hmm.
The state of infinity, of energy, is the absolute. So we'll probably be talking about that here a lot in a few moments whenever we get to the Torus and the cosmic age, which is right around the corner now.
Since you brought up the what you're talking about, this is. Can I bring it
Yeah,
up
go
on
ahead.
the
Yeah,
screen?
go ahead. So,
So
this is the consciousness energy grid that we're referring to. This is how they mapped out your head in terms of the grid for the universe.
yeah, and if you guys can read that, I don't know if you can read it.
I don't know
or
if you
not,
can read.
but I don't even know if you can read. Sally, get the shovel. So it says here, left hemisphere is the consciousness grid. And it says it acts like the mind's computer software to reduce input from right hemisphere to verbal symbols and concepts. And then on the right-hand side, it talks about the right hemisphere consciousness grid. And it says reduces 3-dimensional holographic image to 2-dimensional go/no-go form. It's interesting. And, the line above the image here in the center just says consciousness energy grid.
And remember, this is our second read, so we kind of understand it a little bit better.
Yeah.
The first time I saw that, I was like, that's a badass tattoo. That's cool.
Dude, that's tight.
I don't know what that is. That's cool, though.
That's pretty tight.
It's pretty much just laying out how your head works, how your brain works. They also have a diagram of the brain and how it syncs together through energy flow, which is also a fascinating photo that they have in here.
Oh, yeah.
So the absolute is simply the state of finding that grid, lining it all up so that it works congruently with the universe, because the universe's grid is the same. It's all universal. It's all the same, infinite, if you will. So once you're able to get there, that is when you become a dimension walker.
Yeah.
Intervening
So
dimensions.
you're jumping over to all the applications and implications of this.
Absolutely. We're already
Okay.
an hour,
Well,
30 minutes.
It doesn't
in.
matter. I'm going until this is done.
I'm
so-
not.
Okay, well then you can leave. This is what we're here for, and we're here to give the people what they want. This is a huge thing to go into. Even though it's not a big book, it is packed full of information. And I'm not doing no part 2. We're just doing it all. So it's either you're here to play for the home team or get the fuck out of the stadium. Womp womp. See? You see what I did there? Anyways, that was dumb. Let's move away from all that. I'm going to speed through this. So we talked about resonant energy grid. What was the last part you left off on?
The
Applications, basically.
intervening dimensions, the absolute mindset with the energy melding.
Okay, yeah. So I want to just kind of give a brief explanation on how consciousness transcends physical limits. So McDonald turns to Planck distance. It's the smallest measurable unit of space. So at this scale, traditional physics breaks down and reality becomes a swirling sea of basically quantum energy.
Yes.
It's insane. Yeah, it gets insane.
Which is what we're experiencing in today's society with quantum technology being so prevalent.
And this is talking about going outside of time and space.
Absolutely.
Because that's what you were getting into. So through the whole gateway process, consciousness basically clicks out, quote unquote, of the physical realm, and when that happens, it's aligning with the vibrations at the Planck scale. So it's this tiniest unit of measure. So this is basically described as like a sudden transformative kind of shift where the mind detaches from time and space constraints. So to quote it here, it says, at the level of the absolute, the mind reaches a point of infinite speed and sees all dimensions simultaneously.
Yep.
In the book, they even actually go into detail about when they are dimension walking at this insane light speed. So they give examples. So basically, when they achieve this state, if they wanted to be on the planet of Mars, right? Let's just say Mars, right? Instead of a different dimension, let's just say our solar system. If they wanted to be at Mars, and I think they bring up Mars in the book, I can't remember. But basically, they can put themselves there visually, like POV style, point of view, as if they're looking at their hands. They just don't see their hands. They're standing on the red planet. And it's instantaneous. Once you achieve this synchronization and this click out, you can go anywhere you want at the speed of light. And we're even talking about time travel as well, through consciousness. So basically, when you achieve this and you click out, if you are attuned and you are practiced and all these things, and you're able to achieve this, essentially they explain like basically you focus on a particular point in time and you will go back to it. You can actually go to that point in time. It's not like you're looking left and right and go, all right, let's drive down this side of the street, to get there. No, it's more of everything's all around you at all times, like instantaneous access. And then all of a sudden, pop, you're there. It's like everything just morphs in you, like shoop, and boom, you're there. Like
Yeah,
no latency.
think of it whenever Alice jumped into the rabbit hole, how she fell and fell and fell and fell and
Only
fell.
she wasn't
and
falling.
they clicked out into.
She just snapped fingers. She was there.
That's exactly right.
Just no rabbit hole.
Yeah.
She didn't have to use the hole, bro.
That's the exact
Yeah.
metaphor they use inside the book too.
Yeah, it is.
The fashion of Alice beginning her journey into Wonderland is the how they use it whenever you click out of existence, if you will. So
Yeah. So I'm gonna jump back up. So let's so just to kind of like wrap up the whole seeing all the dimensions simultaneously, and like being at this infinite speed. This is essentially where experiences like a lot of out-of-body travel and interaction with non-physical dimensions come into play. So like your consciousness isn't leaving your body in a literal sense. You're still in your body.
yeah.
Like during this whole thing, you're still in your body. You're just tuned out. That's it. So someone would just see you over there just like that.
Meditating, if you will.
Yeah, essentially. Like you could have full-blown conversations while you're there because they did it in groups.
Yes, they did.
They traveled together in groups. This is how McDonald was able to get proof, basically validate that this is all very real because he participated through the entire program himself as well. And he went with these guys. And this is without drugs, people. They weren't taking drugs.
No, they were not.
And him and a handful of other people who were part of the program all traveled to this one point in place that was not on this realm of existence in this earth. And when they all came out, and they're all in separate rooms, by the way. They didn't do it in the same room. It stayed in there. It was all separated. And when they all came out, they all recounted the same exact things and conversations that took place between themselves and the other participants while in this place. And everyone said the exact same thing of how it transpired. So wanted to make sure to say that. So did we talk about the absolute yet?
Yeah, we already have.
We have about the source of all energy, all this stuff. Okay, cool. Now, I'm just going to say like pretty much like bringing everything together on this part of it. So the physics of consciousness is basically, it is 100% the scientific backbone of the entire gateway process. Do not forget that. So basically everything about it explains how consciousness as an energy field interacts with the holographic universe and then it accesses higher dimensions through resonance. So the absolute serves as the ultimate destination and the point where all knowledge, energy, and creation converge into one. So with all that being said, I'm going to jump ahead to the applications because, we've already talked about the hemisync. We've talked about the resonant tuning. We already talked about the energy conversion box. Well, actually, we haven't. We haven't talked about energy conversion box.
No, we have not.
So since we almost missed that one, the energy conversion box, what this is that it is one of the first tools that you have to use and also conquer in the gateway process. So it's essentially a visualization exercise to help you clear your mind of distractions. Imagine a physical box where you can place all your worries, anxieties, mental clutter, the works. Once those distractions are locked away, your mind becomes free at that point, and you're able to truly focus. So that is I want to make sure we said that because I didn't realize we hadn't said it. For some reason, I thought you had mentioned it earlier.
No, I didn't really find it all that valuable.
It is valuable. That's the fundamental part of the thing. Where is this coming from? Jeez, Evan. Dude's over here going, dude, I just do what I want.
I do.
I just get there, dude. So yeah, we already talked. Oh, and you already went through the focus levels, right?
The focus levels, no.
We should talk about that. right now.
I briefly mentioned them
because I've
they're
only got
different stages.
applications, and then I've also got final thoughts, and then I have the Torus.
I briefly mentioned the focus stages. You have 1 through 20, I believe it is. So
Yeah.
once you hit 12 is when you begin to travel and
Okay. Yeah.
transcend.
So you already got that. So I think you said focus 15,
hmm
where it's no time, right?
Yep, that's the future.
Yep. And then there was one I didn't hear you say, but I find this one really fascinating. It's focus 21. It's the edge of perception. So it's basically the deepest state described in the entire document. This entire long document, this is the deepest state you can achieve. And at focus 21, you are on the boundary between physical and non-physical dimensions. So it's a launching point for your out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, and interaction with the universal hologram. Like visually, you can interact with the hologram when you're in this state
Yeah.
in your head with other things in other universes. So imagine it like, you know how like there's like, ghosts. Let's say you believe in ghosts or something, and you see a cabinet door get slammed open and shut in a house, and you're like, oh, the house haunted. Murr. You could do this from this state.
Absolutely right.
Like you can literally interact with the hologram, which the hologram then is also interwoven on an energy level and frequency level into everything. So if you wanted to go open someone's cabinet in another room, you could do it at this state. It's
Granted,
insane.
it may take you 20 years to get to that level.
Yes.
To be able to experience these sort of extra being realities. But if you just want to reach stage 12 to where you're finding your true purpose and being able to experience out-of-body experiences on a regular basis, maybe 3 to 5 years.
I want to know how you just like get ready for stage 1.
Sit
Which
down.
you can, by the way. This is all out there. There's
You-
YouTube videos.
You
of,
sit
like-
down and put the headphones on.
yeah. So, all right. So I'm going to, there's a lot more we could break up into the different techniques and things like what we were just talking about, like color breathing. I'm just going to read the names of them. We can come back if someone comments and says, hey, go back to it, you jerk.
Of course.
So there's color breathing, which is visualization of colored light to align balance your energy, because colors correspond to specific frequencies. So there's that. You got remote viewing. I'm sure everyone knows what that is. But in case you don't, it's heightened awareness, basically being able to perceive distant locations, objects, events. Basically, it's a practical way of applying the holographic universe theory, where your consciousness can read, quote unquote, the universal energy field. And then there's the energy bar tool. It's basically just like a mental concept to create to manipulate energy. And then of course out of body techniques or OBEs. I think you mentioned OBE earlier.
We have many times, yeah.
Yeah. And we've already talked about that. So and you already talked about the healing, personal growth. We're good. Let's move on to the application. This is the wild stuff. This is where everything just takes off.
This is the wild stuff. I think dimension walking is pretty wild.
This is where they talk about it. This
Time
is
and
where we
space
talk about
jumping
doing
is
all the different
cool.
stuff.
And
Yeah.
traveling through wormholes at
Mhm.
breakneck speed to click out of existence. That's exhilarating, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Torus and the cosmic eggs that we're going to get to is how the black holes and white holes work. Is that what we're getting to?
I was gonna explain that once we just did this.
Okay.
That way, because this is the fun stuff. This is like getting into like actually just staying on the fun stuff.
This is what I wanted to be
Continuously.
talking about.
Yeah, but this is imperative stuff. Like if we could be like every other podcast that wants to pick a topic and only touch the surface. I don't believe in that. It's either go big, go home. I'm from Texas. Route 44 is at every Sonic, man. 44 ounce.
You keep looking at the monitor. love
I know.
it.
I keep looking at the monitor because there you guys are, right there. This guy gets it. They get it right there. I know, right? So let's just talk about the applications of this. So, you have the intelligence gathering and remote viewing. So one of the most significant uses of the gateway process in a practical setting is the remote viewing aspect of it. So, and we already explained what that was or whatever, but this was obviously something of huge value for the military and intelligence sides of things in the military operation. So that was a big deal. And of course, access the universal hologram, gather information, blah, blah, blah. Now, in the book, they talked about while doing this stuff, the remote viewing side of things. I don't know if you remember this off the top of your head, but like where they talked about how they were able to look across the world into a facility and be able to see launch codes for nuclear, weapons.
Yes, so they did it
And
during
because this
the
is during the Cold War.
yeah they did it during the Cold War. You didn't press the button.
Oh, I did.
To see if they can. First off, they tested it from California to Philadelphia. They tested to see if somebody can go from one laboratory to another facility to read a note. I think the note said like a random number, a random skew of numbers, and they had an individual in the room who can verify it was happening, and they were on the phone or on the radio communicating right back to California, and the person in California who was astral projecting and using their mind to travel was able to speak in their human form
Mm-hmm.
what they were seeing. So they would travel and they'd be in 7 5 4 2 1 0. And the guy on the other end in Philadelphia would say, that's correct.
Yep.
So that was the first practical application of this. This is how they
Mhm.
first were like, okay, this is real. How can
Mhm.
we use this to combat nuclear war?
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty much, right? So then they would travel to communist Russia and China and during the Cold War era and figure out, are they really planning on blowing us up?
Mhm.
Are they really doing this?
And just to really hit the nail on the head about how this is real, what we're talking about,
Yeah.
and right on what you're talking about. Quote from the book says, or it says right here, it says, "We have the ability to transcend spatial limitations, provides a unique and powerful tool for intelligence operations." He literally, that's just one line snippet I pulled out of it just to read with this part, about the remote viewing
important.
aspect, because in the documents it goes on to further explain more stuff, pretty much, on that part, talking about how you can do it and that he did it, and it's insane. Like it's just, yeah. Anyway, so the next one, it's problem solving. So if you're in an altered state of consciousness, your mind operates as a much higher level of clarity, like we had talked about before, and intuition. So it basically the gateway process encourages all the participants to focus on specific problems or challenges during stakes like Focus 12 or Focus 15, and by removing the clutter of everyday thought and accessing higher awareness. And participants basically can approach problems from a fresh perspective and discover creative solutions, things that you would have never even conceived of thinking of doing because it was not something within your horsepower of your brain to wrap your head around before. So, and then of course you brought up the healing energy, and, healing yourself, your body, all that stuff. So now I want to talk about there is implications of this stuff, and this is the scary part. This is where things actually get really scary. What?
You keep looking at the monitor.
I can't help
love
it. That's where my viewers are. I don't know what it is. Like the camera right here, like blends in
That's
with the
you.
backdrop. I know, but the camera here blends in when I look at it, and I don't even see it. So I instinctually look there because it's a much larger object. So if I'm looking here, and you just know I'm looking at you. You guys have beautiful eyes, by the way, except for that guy on third from the left. Uggy. Don't know what you actually look like though. So the implications for consciousness. This is where it gets scary to you as the person doing it.
Yeah.
So basically, it's saying that there's the gateway process has very profound implications for basically just how we understand consciousness and reality. And they emphasize in these documents that consciousness is not confined to the brain or body. Instead, it's an energetic phenomenon that interacts with the universe on a fundamental level. And one of the things is that when you're dimension walking, doing this, and this is where your consciousness is now walking across all these different dimensions. And if you're not careful, they explicitly state in the documents, McDonald states very imperatively, you don't do this alone. He literally said, we do not do it alone, because when they do it alone, you basically get surrounded by unknown entities.
Yeah.
They just show up, and they have ill intent. They don't like you, and he kind of explains, but then he doesn't on the perspective of potentially where these things, mindset is coming from, what their perspective is, and basically essentially what you tried to land the plane on the, because papers disappeared at this point. This is what we're talking about, how we get to the part where he said a whole page was missing at the beginning that's not in the documents because it's fully redacted. It's because he was talking about the details of these occurrences.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
says that you become in a very vulnerable stage whenever your body is frequencing at the necessities that it is, and then other entities who exist in this realm become attracted to it, and oftentimes they can be malignant and dangerous. So they heed caution for individuals who are doing this in their own space alone once they get past stage 12.
Yep.
So you're pretty much safe until you hit stage 12, and once you start branching forward, I would recommend reaching out to a expert or somebody who can sit at least in the room with you until you and help you get out of this the hypnosis stage.
Yes, without a doubt. And he makes sure to talk about that in there, about how they would do is they would do it in groups, because if you and your fellow we'll say travelers, are together as a group doing this, they tend to stay away, because when you guys are all together in this altered state, it's like your frequencies start to mesh together while you're wherever they are in some other dimension, walking atmosphere, right, or environment. While they're all together, your frequencies kind of like build off of each other, which then makes it helps repel essentially these unknown entities that do have ill intent, that don't like you. They don't want you there. So that is something else that throw out there. So just think about that, everybody. They're saying you can literally like achieve this mental state, and it's like, oh whoa, I just achieved this. I'm gonna go and see what some alien planet looks like. Well, instead you over guessed your limitations, or underestimated, and next thing you know, you're walking between multiple dimensions because you're new at this, and you just got to this level, and all of a sudden these unknown entities start showing up. Like, what's my $5? Like, you're not leaving here until you give my $5, or I might just swap places with you, because that is actually a thing, by the way. That he mentions it in there, that these entities potentially could go back to where we are, like your body, and go, I'm gonna hop scoodle and take this for a test drive. Hence, it made reading about all this stuff made me think of possessions.
Yeah, exorcists.
Yeah. And I kind of, it made me have a different perspective on exorcisms and things like that. And I think, and maybe dipping into the science of it, and just to move on from this, but I want to throw it out there. These possessions that supposedly take place may actually be happening, because I used to not really believe in possession.
I mean, there's a lot of proof of them being real.
Yeah.
So
it's like, I didn't really believe in it before, but then after digging into this and then doing my own deprivation tank session and experiencing what I experienced in there, it changed my whole perspective on it, because it's like one of those things where it's like, you may have like a dogmatic or faith, like he says, that quote I read to you guys earlier, like, it doesn't matter what you believe in. It's all the same in the end if you achieve this level, because you're able to see how everything intertwines. And it just makes me kind of like put things a little bit better in perspective on like possessions, because some people, astral project without intentionally doing so, like while you're sleeping, or dream walk. That's actually a very real thing. And some people are now more naturally in tuned to it just by coincidence, and they're able to achieve it without even trying to. It just happens in, their deep sleeps. So it's like, and then all of a sudden, what if that happened to someone who wasn't trying to do this, and all of a sudden they end up dimension walking or dream walking, and then something else follows it back and gets to your body first? Hence possessions, and where the concept of demon comes from. I get they have to put a label on it from some, dogmatic point of view, whatever. Go ahead. I mean, it fits. If it sits, it fits. Or if it sits. Whatever. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
What's next on the list?
Hey, I'm enjoying the conversation here. Don't boot scoot boogie me, or you can just sit there and look pretty. Anyways, but yeah, so it's just something to think about. It's pretty wild. Evan really wants me to move on, so I'm going to move on now. Because, now the human potential. Well, we've already talked about that. There are psychological barriers, because not everyone is ready to confront the reality. He states it in there. Not everyone's ready to confront the realities of the gateway process, some people have a very hard time even crossing a lot of different boundaries and thresholds, mainly because of who they are as a person and what they they're convicted on, what they believe in, things of that nature. So, but anyways, I'm gonna move on and everything. I'm done with all my stuff. All I have are my final thoughts, except for the Torus. And I want to pull that up, and we just knock out the Torus, and then we do our reflections on this.
Yeah.
So,
We're not going to talk about the cosmic egg, though.
oh, we're getting it. I'm lotting it into the Torus.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, bro, you know you want to. So, I'm going to pull up my an image real quick for y'all to see. Unless you actually, why don't you start talking about the cosmic egg? I'm gonna pull this
Sure,
up.
yeah, right on. The underlying tone near the end of this, the CIA document, was a lot of protect yourself, be cautious, be aware of what's going to happen to you, and then also
There it
our
is.
place in time. Where are we? What's going on in the universe? Because these individuals who were doing these experiments were able to go into our galaxy and see it at a more magnified, outstretched approach and look. So they came to a conclusion, something called the cosmic egg. And it looks like an egg. So they have the theorizing here saying, if you look through the telescopes that we have out inside of our galaxy right now, and you look forward, and it looks as if the galaxies that are ahead of us are traveling faster away, and the ones that are behind us are moving slower, that's because we have just been jettisoned out of a black hole, or rather a white hole. So these individuals who have traveled through space and time have been able to travel into black holes and into white holes. These things are the start of the Big Bang. They use it in conjecture and in the same concept, the Big Bang and the Torus. So these two things, they use them in conjunction into the same concept. And it's constantly being recycled. So once you go inside of the black hole, you come out the white hole, and then you're blasted around in a egg formation around the universe. Ben, if you would please pull up the egg on screen here so everybody can see what I'm referring to. So the top image here, that's the cosmic egg. You see in the center there, you have the white hole and the black hole, entrance and exit. So the black hole's the entrance, the white hole's the exit. I think I misspoke saying the black hole was the exit.
Yeah, that's okay.
But the black hole is the entrance. So once you go through it, you come out the white hole, and then it splits into two different sections. This is called the universal hologram, the cosmic egg. And where we are located is in the right top quadrant of this egg. So right before it curves over,
Like right here?
A little further up. There's another image in the book of where we are located, is what they think.
Basically around this area.
Yeah, so right before it begins the turn. So we're going to be speeding up here relatively soon in the relative time of the universe, right? Billions and billions of years. And then we'll go right back into the black hole and spit right back out. So it's a constant recycle of energy at all times. That's why they are always pushing frequency and energy reusage, because it's never ending. It's infinite. This is an infinite based energy. So it's always going to be recycled and always be reused.
Did you already explain how this is the cosmic egg here is the same, like this whole image that they drew applies to our universe that we live in too? Like if you look at our universe does the same thing.
Yeah,
apparently. Not just mentally.
I just mentioned, if you look at our universe, and with a telescope, you look forward, the galaxies are moving faster. Behind us, they're moving slower.
Yeah, I heard
because
you
they're
say
going around the
something,
bend. That's how our universe is perceived. Again, this is just a theory. Nobody truly knows how it works, but this is how they've experienced it in their
in
their
the gateway. Yep.
In their experience whenever they're going through time and space.
Yep.
So this is how they visualize it. This is how they see it. Sort of amoeba.
It's also how
thing.
it presents itself once
It's exactly
you're there.
how it presents itself.
And then below that is the Torus, and this makes up everything, like everything in our universe of how things move together. In fact, if you let me switch my actually it doesn't matter because I'm still showing the picture. So if you look at this Torus here, how everything kind of winds out and then it spirals down the center and then it starts again and it gets shot outwards and then loops around, and then it gets spiraled right down the center. if you look at our a good example of how this applies to everything. One, if you look into a very powerful microscope and look down, you see that yeah, sorry, I still got on you, but you see that the how everything intertwines frequency wise, even on a molecular level, tend to do this pattern. And then a really great example is actually our solar system, because our solar system, if we're not staying in one point in space, and you think, oh, hey, the sun's the center and everything's just rotating around like a disk on these other things. No. In fact, we're actually moving through the universe. All the planets are actually moving, just like the cosmic egg explains up here. We're moving, and if you'll see this. Imagine the sun flying in a straight line with a line behind it, just so you can see the trace trail of where it's coming from, that it's moving. And then imagine all of the planets in the solar system spinning around the sun, in the orbits that happen, the different things. Basically, while it's going, if you draw the trails coming off them as everything moves through the universe, it creates the torus 100% perfectly.
That's exactly right.
Like perfection.
Exactly right.
And that's literally it comprises everything that exists on large scale and small scale. So, yeah.
So if you can scroll down some more, there's another image that I want to show. So this is the one that shows where our galaxy is in the grand scheme of everything. So the toruses fit into where the quote unquote nucleus is, which is where everything is spiraling around at rapid rates to be pushed right back into the black hole, out the white hole, constantly changing, constantly going over and over and over again, which is where the Big Bang starts. So at the start of that white hole is where the big boom happens. That's the ultimate theory that they're coming up with. It's the ultimate thought, right? So whenever you think of Big Bang, it's not just a particle explodes. It's we went through a black hole out to another dimension. Boom, here we are.
Yep.
So we've already traveled through black holes. Everyone who's saying we need to travel through them, we already have.
In a really weird way we have. It's not the traditional. Well, I'm saying it's not the traditional sense you think of. Oh, I'm going to fly the spaceship over here and fly into this black hole, and we're going to go for a ride, guys.
Yep.
Like, it's not like that in that regard, but it gives you a different perspective on black holes and what it means.
And who's to say we haven't done it a million times already?
Yeah, no shit. Is there anything else that you want me to keep this up for?
No, that's the main image I really wanted to touch on.
Yeah, so just remember what this torus looks like, because I'm about to explain the crap out of it. Now, I'm going to go kind of fast, just because we've been going for like 2 hours. So I'm going to try to go through this, but not leave out any pertinent information so you guys have a good idea. Let me go ahead and turn that bad boy off and then pop it back over to me. So what the torus is, it's literally the universal flow of energy and consciousness. And when I say energy, well, you think about molecular level, atoms, photons, electrons, that's energy. Those comprise of energy as well. So with that being said, the universal flow of energy and consciousness. So the torus is the central concept that bridges the physics of consciousness, energy systems, and the structure of the universe itself. So it's a geometric, as you can tell by that picture that I had up, it's a geometric and energetic structure that appears in nature from the smallest atoms, like I explained before, smallest atoms to the largest galaxies. They all form the torus in their interaction with every form of reality and dimension and existence that they're in. And even behind the curtain, on a different frequency of that universe, there's still a torus there doing the same exact thing, just on a different plane of existence. So, with that being said, as you can tell by the picture, the torus, or the picture I had shown, in fact, I will pull it up one more time just so you guys can see it. So, the torus, as you can see, is kind of like a donut-shaped structure. This is elongated out so you can kind of see the different flows, so it's not all super knitted. But the torus is an elongated or a donut kind of shaped structure that represents the continuous flow of energy. So basically imagine a vortex where energy flows into the center, circulates around the edges, and then loops back into itself. And this dynamic flow kind of creates a system that's both self-contained and infinitely connected to its environment. Never ends. So kind of like the key things of the torus is the flow dynamics, the universal presence of it, and then the straight up energy balance, which it represents equilibrium and harmony, where basically energy flows efficiently without any form of loss whatsoever. So in the context of the gateway process, the torus represents the flow of energy within human consciousness and the universe. So McDonald basically was saying that the human consciousness operates as a toroidal. Is that how you say it? Toroidal
I believe that is correct,
energy
yeah.
field, continuously interacting with the environment and the larger universal energy grid. And to quote him exactly, he says consciousness operates as, what I just said, the dynamic toroidal. God, it's such a tongue twister for me. Basically maintaining balance while exchanging information with the universal hologram, and it does it all on its own. It's just naturally there. So how it applies to the human consciousness, which you touched on, talking about the cosmic egg and the other thing, basically you have the inner and outer flow, which is and this is how it applies to the human consciousness. So you have the inner and outer flow. So your thoughts, emotions, awareness generate energy that moves outward, influencing your environment. At the same time, external stimuli feedback into your consciousness, creating a continuous exchange rate that's happening between the two. And then, of course, you have, the next would be resonance, and it's where your toroidal field aligns. Ooh, I did better on that one.
Yeah, I'm proud of you.
Toroidal field aligns with the energy of the universe, and you achieve a resonance, enabling heightened states of awareness and connection. So, and then, of course, lastly, gateway techniques. So the exercises like the resonant tuning and the hemisync to align your internal toroidal energy flow with the broader universal system, maximizing perfect coherence and balance.
That's beautiful.
So I love
That's
it.
so beautiful.
I like it when the plan comes together. So the torus. So one thing is that the torus in nature and the universe. Like I said, it's everywhere. So it is literally the fundamental pattern that underpins the structure of all reality, both visible to us and invisible to us. So we're talking atomic scale, just to recap it: atomic scale, biological scale, planetary scale, and cosmic scale. Literally everywhere on different values, and it's insane.
It's amazing.
And it's in just to clarify, the torus is not just a physical structure, just to bring this home and walk away from it. It's not just a physical structure. It's literally the blueprint for how energy flows across all scales of existence.
Yep.
Take it to the bank. Now, I did kind of break down the role of the torus, and I don't have to touch on everything because we've covered a good, pretty much
the entire book, yeah.
Yeah. Just going through the stuff, you end up covering pretty much everything. That's why I wasn't worried about time. We're basically done, almost done. We're like right at the end. But I'd say about 15 more minutes and we're good, because I just want to give some thoughts on some things. Is that fair? I think it's very fair. I'm talking to you. I want you to talk back. Don't be sitting there. Oh, I'm not talking.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Hell
Ben.
yeah.
15
That's what I'm
minutes,
talking about.
20
Amp
minutes.
me up.
I ain't
Yes.
looking for no 6-hour podcast.
No, we ain't
though.
doing no 6 hour. I said we're just going until it's done, which was going to be roughly 2 to 2.5 hours. I already knew that. Well, I didn't, but
No, you did not know that.
I do now, dude. That's what's up. So the torus, obviously, like I said, the torus explains how everything in the universe is connected. But since the torus allows us for the free exchange of energy and information, it pretty much creates a network where individuals, like people, planets or galaxies, are both distinct and part of a larger whole, but we're all within the same whole. It's weird. It's weird to get your head wrapped around some of this stuff.
I don't think so.
It's just weird.
I beg to differ. I think it's a very beautiful and
Oh yeah, no one's saying that. Of course it is.
an introspective idea. if the CIA were to have released this sort of concept much earlier in our society, made it very known and public, I feel as if people would have been kinder to one another and more understanding. I think Andy Weir, the author, did it really well whenever he wrote the book, The Egg. It's about a 15-minute read. And he really depicts the cosmic egg and the torus well, and how everybody is connected and everybody is the same based around these ideas. So I don't find it very weird at all. I find it actually quite beautiful.
Yeah. So I agree with that. Thank you. I'm glad you add that in because it's absolutely stunning, especially when you start digging. If you take the time to go look at these documents and actually read this thing all the way through, and then you try to do some meditation on your own, because what is it? YouTube. On YouTube, you can actually find the gateway process, and they have it on YouTube. They're old freaking videos, but you can go watch it because those got released.
Yeah, they're free to listen to on YouTube if you just Google the what is it called? The Gateway tapes. There's 21 of them. You can listen to them start to finish.
The gateway tapes. That's
So,
sounds like something conspicuous.
I wanted to pull them up so we can listen to them. We still might be able to do that, but they are not that interesting to listen to be honest. It's a bunch of noise. So feel free to at your own time, your own leisure, whenever you're meditating next. I know a lot of people who meditate. I do it myself. If you use theta waves, it's much in that chagrin to where you are going to find your stability and your calmness faster. Listening to theta waves while you sleep is known to calm you and cure your anxiety. So it's not much different from this.
Yeah. So I kind of want to do some, and this is my last bit, and it's just really just kind of doing like a final look at things, like thoughts, like my own personal thoughts, and then coupled with just kind of like what conclusions I came to researching and doing over this stuff. So, kind of like my first thought was, what the big picture of it all, right? Like what does the gateway process like actually reveal after going through all this stuff? Well, one thing the things I took away from it is basically by, well, before I say that, it's really more of like the gateway process and experience, the whole thing. It straight up challenges the very nature on a large scale across the board for everyone in existence. It literally challenges the very nature of what we think reality is. It puts it in a completely different perspective. So, and of course, it's like, okay, well, you're using sound frequencies, visualization, brain synchronization, and the overall process pretty much paves the way to explore realms that are typically beyond any kind of perception that I would ever have naturally or even thought of, to be honest, like in this regard. So, and it just basically tells me that, like, okay, so interconnectedness of all things. So like the nature of time and the potential of the human mind and like where you actually sit in the universe, that it changes my whole viewpoint on it.
As it should.
If everything about this is 100% real.
Yeah.
Now, I'm inclined to think that there is truth to this, pretty much across the board, given how this was done, it was laid out, all that stuff. So I will say this, my takeaway on the big picture side of things was the process isn't just about basically achieving like an out-of-body experience or remote viewing. It's basically about just expanding the understanding of, what consciousness is and what it means to be conscious.
Yeah.
That's what it tells me. That's my big takeaway. And then basically the fact that the universe, the emphasization that took place in the documents, that the universe, obviously experiencing it through doing the gateway process, is this weird holographic interconnected whole, and consciousness isn't some like passive kind of thing that's happening, but a straight up active 100% mandatory participant of shaping reality in general. So like that was just coming to those conclusions after going to this thing. That was my own personal takeaways. I was just like, bah, my brain hurts. I need a beer.
So on my
You know?
on my second read through,
You want a beer?
it wasn't so it wasn't so self-consciousness finding, because I got that on my first read through. For me personally, it was about the study of meditation is so powerful. If you're able to really take 30 minutes out of your life to meditate, to attempt to make yourself better, you're going to make strides ahead of everybody else. The power that is behind meditation is so strong that it can cure you of your ailments and make things that you want to happen come true. So not only should you take this into effect in your day-to-day life and how you go about things, you should tell everybody you fucking know about it.
Yeah.
You should be like, hey, meditation's important. You should do it. I do it. We do it. And whenever you think about meditation, it doesn't have to be just sitting in a quiet room, legs crossed. Oh
yeah.
You don't have to do that. For me, I like to sit with my dog and
Have you seen my dog?
sit with my headphones on, listening to something that's calming and just peaceful. I tended to do it in the mountains, in the trees. That's where I prefer to do it. But if you can't, you can do it in your bed. My partner,
I like doing it in the
she
bed.
does it in the bed. She likes to lay down and get comfortable and get like peace of mind. So
Mhm.
meditation is incredibly invaluable. I recommend everybody doing it. That is what I took away from the second time through. Considering all the research and years they did into it, it has to have some sort of validity to it, if you know what I'm trying to get at. So is that all you have to say? Anything else? Because
No.
if not,
I got a
I
lot
would
of thoughts.
I would be oh, you got what you want
I
more
have
to
a
say?
lot of I have a whole bunch of things I came to conclusions on and the kind of philosophical introspective. But I didn't want to cut you off. Keep going.
I was just gonna do a sponsor ad read.
You waited until a really late time to do it.
We got to do it.
All right, let's do the sponsor I read. I'll let you kick it
Do you
away.
want to do your? I don't want to take away from the philosophical concept that you want to.
All right, do we just want to finish
Yeah,
this and then
I'll
talk
do
about
the
the
ad read at the
sponsor
very,
and how
very
we're
end, very,
open
very
to
end.
more
Yeah,
sponsors?
I'll do the very very end.
Okay. Let's just jump off this train while we're ahead, everybody. See, that was such horrible timing because now my mojo's all thrown off. I'm just like, I don't even know what to do with myself right now. I don't even know if I want to read my final thoughts anymore.
I can always do an ad read.
Yeah, thank you, Guinness, for sponsoring the podcast. And I would cheers my buddy over here, but he's not holding his bevy in his hand, Oh, they dink it, and then you sink it, bro. Anyways, let's get back to the.
I think I had a
Let's dig
great
into it.
frothy mustache on that
I did too.
one.
I was waiting to switch the camera back to me. It would look like I got a gray mustachio. Anyways, so I did write some things down about transcending time and space. Just that whole narrative, that whole concept, I find very, very interesting. So in the report, reading through these documents as I was fleshing through this a second time and really being able to like take it in again and get like a fresh data set in my noggin. Is this the fact that the idea that consciousness can transcend to, can transcend the physical limits of time and space? The fact that is extremely profound to me. The fact that is something that apparently was achieved by numerous people, and it was something they kept doing and achieving. Because I'm sure if y'all have never watched the Sean Ryan podcast, he's had people on there who do remote viewing.
Yep.
He's had I think one of his more recent episodes, he had a priest on there who does like exorcism stuff. But it's really interesting because, listening to other people who supposedly were and these were people who worked for the CIA doing this, that he got to come on his show. Just listening to them talk about everything, and then also the fact deep diving back into this, it sets a very different tone in my head now. Sets the stage very differently. But speaking of the transcending time and space, though, the fact that it's not just a theoretical idea, and it's basically an experience that anyone who's participating in literally reports constantly and consistently. It's not like, oh, one person did out of 5. No, they all say it every single time. So it's just like my personal little 2 cents notes on this on this narrative is just the fact that like time is no longer a constraint. Instead, it becomes a fluid, basically like a fluid construct that consciousness can literally move freely through. And then my next little like kind of conclusion note is the fact that the implications of this are mind-boggling. They're very profound, very staggering. And if time is just a construct, then our understanding of cause and effect, memory and destiny may need to be, at this point, they just need to be rethought, generically speaking, like on a human level. Like our understanding of it needs to be reassessed if this is all 100% true. You know what I mean? Like it, yeah. So my other thing I put on here was the absolute and the journey to the oneness kind of aspect. But I mean, I wrote a note on it, pretty much just saying like, you know, the fact that it really, I feel like the absolute and the journey to oneness really just, it more resonates, the concept resonates more with people who are more involved in like spiritual type traditions, type narrative. Because I mean, I know the report frames all this in scientific terms, and you know, for like making it accessible to people from all backgrounds. It doesn't matter what your belief structure is. But the absolute and like the oneness thing, it really falls into the category in my head, just from how everything's laid out, of more of really being more in tune naturally with people who are of some type of dogmatic type faith, very devout. You know, that kind of category. So yeah, that's all I got to say on that. I didn't really have a whole lot to put on the absolute one in the oneness. I didn't really have anything else to put on it. But let me just get to my last one. So I did write down some things about like kind of like challenges to consider in a way. So, you know, obviously they stated in all these documents that this isn't an easy thing to attain. You're not going to achieve it overnight. It's not going to happen. From what everything was listed out, we were talking years and years and years of practice and commitment and consistency to build this thing. It's just like your mind's a muscle, just like anything else. Like you got to work it if you want it to get stronger. But the thing is that like, even though there's like all this crazy potential for all these different things, like you know, like the practical and the like, I guess you could say like the ethical side of things, and the philosophical concerns that I felt need to be addressed is really just like, well, one, you've got the accessibility, you know, not, you know, they explicitly state in there, not everyone has the discipline or environment to practice any of these techniques properly. That's just how it is. And then you, of course, have the misuse, because if you can master this, or at least somewhat master it, that means you have the ability to influence energy fields, essentially, like, or access hidden information that could be exploited for harmful purposes. Or maybe you want to cause some ill intent yourself, and you choose to utilize what you've conquered and accomplished with this, and used it for more nefarious means on a vibrational scale, on a different plane of existence, and mess with people who are not in that plane of existence. Because then you could, like the whole narrative, the analogy I use with like the cupboards and stuff. Imagine you wanted to do something more, you know, and you were so good at what you were at doing this, and you've been doing it for so long, like, what's to stop you from doing something more nefarious to somebody?
Most of the people who did this on a regular basis and came out and talked about it said that once you're in this state of oneness or like transcendedness, you don't want to do the malicious stuff.
That's that guy's perspective. Yeah,
there was about 20 people who talked about that.
20 people. 20.
I mean,
I know
how many people are able to reach 20 years of enlightenment.
I'm just saying, maybe they got some halfway decent people, but what if you had someone who was morally you could say, because morality is very subjective.
Of course
of
it
what they're
is.
morally bankrupt. And you had someone who's able to achieve this because they do have focus, they have discipline, but they're not a good person. Like, they have ill intent. They could do things.
I understand that, but
That's all I was trying to get at. Who knows?
I understand that. There's a lot of whistleblowers and people who were doing this, and they were saying that
Yeah.
they were being trained to do illicit things. But once you're able to get to this state, you don't want to do that,
Yeah.
and you kind of can't do that.
Yeah.
So
It states it a lot in those documents. They bring it
does.
up numerous
there
times.
are interviews with people who were a part of it as well that you can find and read, and different biographies that were written about them. But I don't know. I don't have much to say. Can I do the ad read now, so we can end this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go right the fuck ahead.
Oh, wait, you got how much more do you got to say?
Nothing. Oh, the camera was on you. Boom.
Yeah.
There you go.
How much more you got to say?
Nothing.
Oh.
I got nothing.
Then why so grumpy and ornery? Anyway, if you have made it this far into the show, make sure you follow, subscribe, like,
Just
along,
kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
and all that mumbo jumbo that leads to everything else. We truly do support you viewing us. So if you have made it this far, please go ahead and follow us, like us. We do this every single week, Friday or Saturday. We let you know ahead of time so you can make some plans to watch us.
Ooh.
If you don't make it to the live stream, we also release it every Thursday that you can watch or listen to on your preferred podcasting platform. A side note, shout out to Bad Cat Studios for making us some awesome artwork, sending us some artwork, and letting us use some of their bumpers that they've made for us for intermissions, which we haven't used in 2 weeks, but we will be using them again. So shout out to anybody who's willing to stick with us and listen to us. Send us an email at smartlyuneducated@gmail.com. It is a real email, I promise you that.
We got an email. They said it was real.
We will respond to them too. We respond to every email. So send us one, say hi, tell us how much we suck or how much you like us. Either way, we'll respond to it. With that, I don't have much else to say to add to this. I mean, the Gateway Experience, you can go buy this book for $10, or you can go and find it on the internet for free and read it. It's
I posted the
very,
link in the
very cool.
comments.
Very,
yeah,
very
the
cool.
link for the actual PDF, which is exactly what's in this book.
Yeah.
Verbatim. It's there. I do have one thing written, and it was actually my summed up 2-sentence thing of my thoughts. Like, the bottom line of what I really
This
think
guy's
of
always
this.
got something else to say.
Hey, man, I was committed to bringing you guys all the information I could, and I followed through with what I said. So you got it all. The camera's here. You got it all. So it's basically like kind of like the bottom line in my head. This is literally just a doorway to everything with the techniques involved, like everything we covered. This is a doorway to understand the true nature of reality and our place within it. Because this challenges all the boundaries of science, philosophy, spirituality, and it just offers a glimpse of what's possible when we unlock the full power of the mind. And the journey doesn't, ultimately does not even end with the process itself. This is just where it begins. And that's what I came to. Like, this is the beginning. This isn't even the end of it. This is just getting you to the point to where you can start doing these things. So it's just, that was my takeaway. Like, this is, everything about this, once you are involved, it's just the beginning. So that's all I've got. And I appreciate everyone who's tuned in. I have no idea who all is tuned in. I don't even know if we have any listeners right now because I don't have the browser up in front of me.
We had 27.
Woo! The chat was messing up. I posted a thing. So if anyone who's listening right now posted anything in the chat, I saw that we got 2 comments. It popped up. It notified me. I went to it, and everything was froze on the screen. I refreshed the page, and even my messages that I posted weren't even there. So hopefully the messages I sent for like with the link for the PDF file, the works, I'm hoping that they're there and you guys can see them and you can go to that URL and check them out and all that stuff. But like I said, please shoot us an email. We're doing this weekly, like my lovely co-host was saying. And yeah, I love this stuff. Like everything about this, I've been very excited about this episode. Like I didn't care if it was going to be a 4 hour. Oh, I kind of care. If
I definitely care.
I kind of care.
I definitely care about
I
that.
was not planning on doing 4 hour, but I figured it would take roughly 2.5 hours ish to kind of like go through everything and explain and actually dissect it so people understood what we were talking
I think
about.
you got the point across pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Absolutely.
I feel like we did. But like I said, we have. Oh, never mind. I just realized you already plumbed in the other. You already
Oh,
said
yeah.
the other thing. So that's all I got. But
Hasta
please,
la vista.
oh yeah, baby. Please subscribe, follow, whatever. Any support helps. You know, we don't make money off this, just so you guys know. Like we enjoy doing it. We do have a sponsor, but you know, it's not like a thing where we're getting paid a bunch of money. You know, it's just kind of like a scratch your back, we scratch yours type thing. So if you enjoyed this episode or anything like that, we have a ton of other episodes, a plethora. If you're in the MK Ultra, we did a huge thing on that, Plum Island, where they did all the horrible testing of different diseases and viruses and all that stuff right off of the East Coast. We did that one. We've covered a lot of things. You name it. We talk about anything and everything. We appreciate everyone who's tuned in. We'll be here weekly. With that being said, you got anything else?
Power to the people. Adios.
Yes. Power to the people. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
We'll see you guys later. Oh, yeah.
Fingers on the trigger, they pull without a sound. Behind the glass towers, we're buried underground. Secrets in the shadows, locked inside the mind. MK Ultra memories, they'll keep us blind. Static on the screen, voices we don't see. Dumpers got us wired, but we're breaking free. They're watching, they're waiting. With eyes in the sky, manipulating. They silence the